By the third night of the blizzard, every other cabin in the valley had burned through its woodpile. Only one stayed warm on less than half the fuel. The difference was a boulder, the size of a wagon, and the man they called lazy for not moving it.
They thought I was lazy. I thought the earth was smarter than a bonfire.
Now, as the blizzard screamed outside, the rock radiated a quiet, steady warmth. The fire had died 2 hours ago, but the boulders still felt like a living hearth outside. The wind sliced through chinks in other cabins, while his remained sealed around that ancient stone. They called it the lazy man's rock, but tonight it was his only hope. He pressed his palm to the stone, feeling heat rise from the earth itself.
I never needed to be right. I just needed to stay alive.
6 months earlier, the valley wore autumn's gold, and Michael stood on a ridge staring at a boulder that would become a cabin's cornerstone or a fool's errand.
This rock will soak up the sun and the fire heat, Susan. By morning, it'll still be warm.
And if you are wrong, we'll be freezing inside a stone oven.
She's right to be scared, but I've felt the earth's deeper warmth before.
They built the cabin around it, log by log, while the town watched and whispered.
Lazy man can't be bothered to move a rock, so he calls it a plan.
Maybe you'll all see when winter comes.
Winter comes every year, Susan. Cold don't care about rocks.
By the time the first snow dusted the ground, the cabin was sealed tight, the boulder enclosed, and the town had already decided Michael was a fool.
We've gambled everything on a stone. I pray Michael's right.
The first sub-zero night closed over the valley, and Susan stayed over, testing the boulder for herself.
Michael, the rock is warm. Hours after the fire died, it's still warm.
That's just thermal mass. The real test is a week of this.
No, this feels different. Like the ground itself is alive under it.
Susan might be seeing what she wants. One night proves nothing.
But that night, even as the fire sank to ash, the boulder radiated gentle heat that never quite left.
Saw you cozying up to a stone. What's next? Marrying a boulder.
It's warmer than your icy floor, Frank. You might try it.
I'll stick to my stove. Let us know when that rock saves your life.
Susan saw a promise. Michael feared hope, and the town, led by Frank, sharpened its mockery. Morning after morning, Susan woke and pressed her hand to the boulder. It never felt cold.
Michael, this rock should be frozen by now, but it's not.
I've noticed. It holds heat longer than any stone I've known.
He began measuring. Before dawn, the boulder was 50 degrees while the air outside froze. Impossible for simple thermal mass.
Could it be some kind of vent? Heat from deep down.
Maybe. But we can't tell anyone yet. No proof. Just a feeling.
But if it's real, we could save the whole valley from freezing.
Or we'd be laughingstocks again. Let's dig gently and keep it between us. If the earth gave us a gift, the town would tear it apart with doubt before it ever helped anyone.
So they buried their suspicion deep, while outside, the town's ridicule settled like frost on a winter pane. When the cold snap hardened the valley, Michael's cabin stayed warm on half the fuel, others burned double, and still felt the freeze. Frank, watching his own woodpile vanish, came to accuse. He found Michael's wood modest, his boulder warm.
Stored sunlight. Stone keeps a day's heat, nothing more. You think that's a miracle.
A week's heat, Frank, and it never fully cools. You are too stubborn to see it.
He's not here to see, Susan. He's here to find fault.
I am here to find reality. This rock is no furnace. It's just a lazy man's crutch.
Frank left, louder than he came, but a sliver of doubt had wedged beneath his words.
He'll freeze before he admits he's wrong.
Maybe. But pride is colder than winter. Let's just keep warm.
And so the valley's mockery continued. But inside the cabin, the boulder's warmth felt less like a gamble and more like a secret weapon. Michael logged the boulder's temperature hourly. 52 at midnight, 50 at dawn. While the valley froze,
The rock holds steady, Susan. But 100 numbers won't convince a town that wants a liar.
Then let me show them the book. Proof is proof.
Proof can be twisted. Frank will say I heated the stone with extra fire.
You trust the rock, but not the people who need warmth.
Frank told the valley that Michael hoarded wood and lied about a magic rock.
He burns double the fuel he admits. That boulder is just a liar's prop.
They're calling us thieves, Michael. This silence is costing us everything.
And a public fight would turn our only sanctuary into a circus.
He held the notebook like a shield, but rumors chipped away at their fragile solitude. One bitter morning, before the stove held a flame, Michael pressed his palm to the boulder. It was already warm.
No fire, no sun, yet heat rises from this stone. Impossible.
He fetched a spade and dug at the boulder's base, his breath clouding the air.
So simple, a mason would laugh. Thermal mass doesn't explain pre-dawn warmth.
Beneath the floor, the soil was dark, damp, and releasing thin wisps of steam.
A hot seam. The earth itself is feeding this stone warmth.
He knelt there, a man who'd stumbled onto a secret the mountain had hidden for millennia.
If Frank learns this, he'll twist it. If I stay quiet, they'll freeze. Not yet. Not until I know how deep it goes.
He reburied the warm earth, carrying a truth that could save lives, if anyone would believe him. Frank arrived at dawn with 3 others, demanding to see the woodpile. He was certain Michael was hiding something.
Half the wood I burn, yet his cabin stays warm. That's not thermal mass. It's a lie.
They found a modest stack of split logs, not enough for 3 nights. Then they entered the cabin.
He's channeled stove heat underneath it. That rock is a prop.
Believe what you want, Frank. The rock speaks for itself.
One of the men touched the boulder, then looked at his palm. Steam rose from his chilled skin.
A man who won't explain his miracle is a fraud. We'll find the pipe.
They'd rather dig holes in my floor than accept a gift from the earth.
They left with more questions than accusations. Michael's silence had turned the air colder than the snow.
If the truth won't save them, then nothing will.
That evening, Susan cornered Michael beside the boulder. Her voice was sharp, her patience gone.
You know something. You've been different since that morning you dug. Tell me.
I found warm soil under the boulder, Susan. Steam. The earth is heating this rock.
And you kept it secret? From me.
I needed to be certain. If I am wrong, we lose what little shelter we have.
He led her to the base and lifted a board. The dark soil breathed a ghost of steam into the cold air.
It's like a heartbeat under the mountain. This changes everything.
But if we tell now, Frank will claim we dug a stove. We need proof that convinces a mason.
Then we dig deeper, together. But no more secrets between us.
They shared a silence heavy with trust and dread. The rock was no longer just a source of warmth, but a burden only 2 could carry. An early winter storm buried the valley under 2 feet of snow. Wood piles shrank, and cold crept through every chink. Michael's cabin stayed warm on half a load of fuel. The boulder, never cold, radiated steady heat through the night.
His cabin is tight. I'll grant, any well-sealed room would hold heat. That rock is just in the way.
You are freezing in a tight cabin while his rock warms the whole space with half the wood. Admit the boulder works.
It's a fluke. A cold spell proves nothing. Wait for a real blizzard, then we'll see.
She's not wrong. But Frank will swallow ice before his pride.
A few listeners hesitated. They'd felt the warmth with their own hands. Doubt began to crack the ice of opinion.
Then come inside. Feel it for yourself. Prove me wrong.
I'll wait for the blizzard. Then we'll see what your rock is worth.
The storm passed, but a larger threat gathered on the horizon, a blizzard that would test more than wood and stone. In the brief calm after the storm, Michael and Susan dug deeper, the spade biting into soil that steamed as it turned.
Look at this crack, Susan. It's a vein of warmth, like the mountain's own breath.
And here, warm water seeping. This isn't just stored heat. It's a fault seam, a gentle fire from the earth.
They had proof now. The boulder sat on a geothermal seam that never froze, a silent ally that had saved them already.
This truth could save them all, or it could bury us under more accusations.
Michael, we have to tell them now. Another storm is coming. I feel it. The sky already looks wrong.
If we tell them now, Frank will call it a desperate lie. We need...
A shutter slammed outside, and the barometer plummeted like a stone. A once-in-a-generation blizzard was racing toward the valley.
Gather everyone you can, Susan, but only those who will listen. The secret stays for now. Survival first.
The wind answered with a howl that shook the cabin, and the first wall of snow erased the world outside. For 3 days, the blizzard erased the valley. Wind howled like a wounded animal, and snow buried every path.
Twice, I've fed the stove. The boulder still breathes like a living hearth.
It's the fault. We're standing on a warm blanket while the town freezes.
In Frank's cottage, the last dry log crumbled to ash. His fingers shook as he reached for green pine.
Smoke me out or freeze me. Makes no difference now.
The green wood gasped and died. The stove door glowed a faint, mocking orange.
My hands are wood. Pride's a poor blanket indeed.
55 degrees. The stone holds steady. We could outlast this storm, but Frank won't last. He'd rather freeze than take my help.
Frost crawled up the walls of Frank's cottage, and his breath hung in the air like a ghost. Susan stood at the window, watching the smoke die in Frank's chimney. Her voice trembled.
He has nothing left, Michael. Nothing but his pride. And that won't keep him warm.
Let his pride warm him, Susan. I am not his keeper.
This isn't about pride. It's about a man freezing to death while we stand in a cabin heated by a secret we won't share.
Frank slumped in his doorway, barely visible through the swirling white, his beard iced, his eyes fixed on the distant cabin.
If I bring him here, he'll say I poisoned his stove to prove my rock was magic.
You are letting your grudge kill a man. That makes you no different from him.
Maybe not, but I didn't start this war, Susan.
She looked at him as if he were a stranger, and the silence that followed was colder than the storm. Outside, Frank coughed, a dry, brittle sound, and the wind swallowed it whole. Susan grabbed her coat and yanked open the door before Michael could utter another word. The blizzard swallowed her whole, but she stumbled toward the dying wisp of Frank's chimney. She found Frank half buried in his open doorway, his lips blue, his eyes unfocused.
Get up, Frank. You are not dying alone out here.
He leaned on her, too weak to resist, and they stumbled through the white chaos toward the cabin's glow. Susan pounded on the door with her frozen fist, shouting through the wind.
Susan, have you lost your...
He stopped cold, staring at Frank's gray face and blue lips. The anger curdled into something darker. Wordlessly, Michael stepped aside and hauled Frank over the threshold.
He's half dead. I can't throw him back out. But I don't have to forgive him.
Frank lay shivering near the boulder, his eyes widening as the stone's warmth seeped into his bones.
I was wrong, Michael. About the rock. About you.
Michael stood in the corner, arms crossed, saying nothing. The silence was heavier than the storm.
It's not just thermal mass, Frank. The boulder sits on a warm fault seam, a gentle geothermal vent.
A hot seam? I've heard of these. It would explain the steady temperature.
Frank reached out a trembling hand and pressed it flat against the stone. Awe replaced the shame in his eyes.
This changes everything. We could use this knowledge to save the town. Michael, let me help you spread the word.
You've called me a liar and a fraud for months. Now you want to be my partner.
I deserve your anger, but the town doesn't deserve to freeze. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right.
Michael's jaw tightened. He stared at the man who had wronged him, now offering a truce half-born of desperation. Trust was still a long way off.
Fine. We'll do it your way, Frank. But the moment you question my word, you are out in the snow. You know the valley's geology. Where could people be surviving near a warm seam?
The basalt ridge to the east. I've felt warmth beneath my feet when quarrying. Some might have crawled into the hollows.
I'll keep the boulder fed and the stove burning. Go quickly.
We rope together. No one lets go. And Susan, Don't open the door for anyone unless you see our lantern signal.
They tied lengths of rope around their waists, the line binding them tighter than any oath. Michael pulled the door open. The blizzard screamed into the cabin. They stepped into the white chaos, rope taut between them. The three figures vanished into the storm, a fragile thread of life against the vanishing world. Behind them, the boulder glowed, patient and warm, waiting for their return. The door banged open, and a line of frozen figures stumbled inside, families found huddled in the basalt hollows Michael remembered. They pressed against the boulder, wide-eyed, as its heat seeped through their frozen clothes. Steam rose from their fingers as they spread them on the stone, a collective exhale of disbelief.
There's more room near the stove. I'll melt snow for water.
This rock has been warming for millennia. Tonight it shares what the mountain forgot.
I called it a lazy man's rock, but I was the lazy one, too proud to see what was right in front of me. Michael was right. The boulder is no trick. It's a gift from the earth itself.
A murmur moved through the crowd, not of doubt, but of dawning belief. The cabin was cramped, but no one complained. The boulder's breath kept the cold at bay, and for the first time in days, hope flickered. The blizzard still howled, but the rock that Michael couldn't be bothered to move had become the warmest object in the valley. As the blizzard reached its deepest freeze, the window glass bloomed with ice, but the air inside never dropped below survivable.
The boulder sits on a hot seam, a crack in the earth's skin. Warmth rises from miles below and meets the sun's stored heat.
Nature gave us a furnace that costs nothing. Michael just listened to it.
A child pressed her cheek to the boulder and smiled for the first time in days.
There, and along the eastern ridge, warm ground is life. I'll spend my days teaching this.
The town's mockery had frozen harder than the ground, but now it thawed. They began to understand. The lazy man's rock was the warmest object in the valley, and the only reason they were alive.
Michael, I am sorry for every word. Let me help you build more of these.
He won't ask for thanks, but I will for him.
The blizzard had not finished, but the town's coldest war was over. On the fifth morning, the wind fell silent. The valley lay entombed in white. The cabin door swung open, and the survivors stumbled out, blinking against the glare of a world reborn in frost. Not all chimneys smoked. In the distance, other cabins sat frozen, their occupants beyond help. The rock they'd mocked still radiated its ancient warmth, a quiet heartbeat beneath the floor.
You saved us all, Michael. The lazy man's rock was smarter than the whole town.
It wasn't my idea. The earth gave the gift. I just refused to move it.
Frank extended his hand, and after a long pause, Michael took it.
You are no fool, Michael. You are a genius, and I was the fool.
The grip was firm. The frost melted between their palms. In that frozen valley, the warmest object in town was no longer just the boulder. It was the new alliance forged in its glow. Spring melt uncovered the bones of the valley. Susan walked the fault line with a charcoal stick and rolled parchment, mapping every warm seam.
The warm ground runs deeper than we thought. It follows the creek, then under the ridge.
See this boulder? Build your wall around it. Let the stone be your hearth. She'll return the favor.
He touched the granite like a father, instructing a son in the old ways, newly learned. Michael's story rode trade winds beyond the valley, carried by men who'd once called him fool. A brass plaque was mounted on the boulder inside the cabin. The words were simple, but they made Michael's ears burn.
I called this rock lazy, but the only lazy one was standing behind it.
No one was lazy, Frank. We were both just too stubborn to listen to the ground.
By summer's start, a dozen homes hugged warm stone. The dead stayed dead, but the living no longer feared the cold. The lazy man's rock had become the cornerstone of a new valley, a silent, patient teacher. Years later, a young family shaped their home around a boulder, following the method once called laziness.
I called a man lazy for leaving a rock in his cabin. That rock saved us all.
He told them of the blizzard and of the boulder that had been the warmest thing in town. Michael stood at a distance, hands in his coat, a quiet smile on his weathered face. He didn't need to speak. The rock was still teaching.
Pride is the coldest thing in the valley, but the earth's heartbeat is free for anyone humble enough to listen.
The young couple touched the boulder as if it were a living thing, and in the spring sun, it seemed to breathe. Michael turned and walked the path he'd walked 1,000 times, the valley now dotted with warm hearths. The story would outlive him, but he never sought fame, only the steady radiance of stone and soil. And in the end, that was enough. That evening, the cabin was still. Michael sat alone, his hand resting on the boulder, as it had 1,000 times before.
They all thought I was too stubborn to move a rock, but I was just humble enough to listen to it.
He had never been lazy. He had simply paid attention when the earth spoke in a language older than words. The boulder had outlasted the mockery, the blizzard, and now the years. It needed no plaque, no praise. Its warmth was simply there, like a promise the ground had kept long before anyone arrived.
All those years I never needed to be right. I just needed to stay alive and share what the mountain shared with me.
He ran his hand over the stone, feeling the slow, ancient heat that asked for nothing in return. He had built his cabin around a giant boulder that held the sun's heat and the earth's own fire. The lazy man's rock was the smartest thing he ever did. And in the end, that was enough. The boulder glowed on, the cabin creaked softly, and outside, the valley slept beneath a blanket of stars.